What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of The Captain's Run. I don't even need to say it. A huge show. You're kidding. Rugby league, it does not stop. It will not quit. My God, it was only a few weeks ago we had a club legend live on TV saying, "Nope, I'm done at this club." We had CEOs calling in Fox League offering contracts. We had blokes taking 10-year deals. We had off-field scandals. And I haven't even mentioned Vegas. It is the greatest game of all. Before I get started, before I say anything, I have not seen enough love for Alex Volkanovski. And I just want to give a shout out to the boy going back over to America, getting his belt back. It's one of the greatest achievements of bravery, of toughness, of mental strength we have seen. Massive shout out to Alex Volkanovski. All right, with that out of the way, welcome to all our listeners. SEN 1170 in Sydney, SENQ 693 in Brisbane, SEN 620 on the Gold Coast. Listen live on the SEN app. Download the SEN app at the App Store or Google Play Store. And listeners belatedly tuning on the podcast, you can subscribe Apple, Spotify, or where all good podcasts are downloaded. Okay, I want to hear the audience's thoughts. 0457 736 736. What are your thoughts about Lachie Galvin telling the Tigers, don't even bother putting in a contract? I will not be here, even though I'm still contracted till 2020, the end of 26. I'm just letting you know that there's no chance of me staying. Don't bother putting in that $6 million offer you were going to put in. I would love to know the audience's thoughts. What's the feel of the rugby league community as fans? Do we need to make changes to this transfer system where a player can say, you know, this far out, I am not going to be there? A club can also say you will not be offered a contract. We still got till November 1 where he could have gone on the open market. Now, all of a sudden, he's at a club where he says it's not good enough for his development. And the club said, well, we're not going to offer you any more contract because you've already brushed us for another year and a half, even longer. I think that some changes, some tweaks need to be made. Now, I don't necessarily think we need transfer windows, but I think the November 1 is a bit of a joke. I think we need to push it further, maybe back to the June 30. I think players get paid way too much money these days where they can afford to have a tighter time in regards to moving their families around the country. I just think a whole year and 2 months in advance, I think that's a lot. That's a long, long time, and I get it. I've got a child myself, and moving them out of school would be tough for sure. But at the same time, these professional athletes get paid pretty good money these days, and so that comes with the territory. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on the Lachie Galvin situation, thoughts on how the Tigers handled it, thoughts on the recent comments coming from Lachie Galvin's camp, thoughts on Lachie Galvin saying that he doesn't believe he can get the best out of him at the Tigers. 0457 736 736. Now, let's talk about it from my perspective. Okay, so I want to make it extremely clear. And I think sometimes when you get caught up in the emotion, you forget to look at certain things and say, is certain things ethically wrong or right? No, so for example, if I'm a player and I'm agitating for a release because I can get some money elsewhere, more money elsewhere, that, in my opinion, is ethically wrong. You've signed a contract. That's probably not right. Even though it happens, that's probably not right. Whereas at the moment, Lachie Galvin technically is not doing anything wrong. He is allowed to want to be at another club. However, these decisions don't happen in a vacuum. And there are certain social norms and respects that should be shown to teammates, to coaches, to former legends of the game, to administrations that put on this effort for you. And that's where I feel like Lachie Galvin has unfortunately not handled this the best. Now, initially, I thought there's no way Lachie Galvin is walking around saying, the Tigers aren't good enough for his development and Benji, the coaching question, all that. I just didn't think a 19-year-old would be saying that. However, he's come out and essentially said that. So it looks like he does feel that way. And so although we can look at the nuanced conversation of, yes, he is 19, so you don't hold a 19-year-old the same accountability as you hold a 30-year-old. Because he's still quite young. However, you still have to hold them accountable for what they say. They are grown men by 19. Yes, they may not be as street smart and understand the whole lay of the land as much as, say, a 30-year-old, but they're still old enough to know what they're doing. And so, although I'm not holding him as accountable as a 30-year-old coming out and handling it this way, I still do think he needs to be held accountable for how it's been handled. And this is where I'm really just frustrated for Lachie Galvin and his team because, unfortunately, when things like these happen, your reputation, it almost never recovers. Like, there is almost a portion of the rugby league community that will never, ever be able to move past this. And no matter how much money that next club offers you, no matter how many premierships you go and win, unfortunately, that can never buy back reputation. And I just think that this has been handled poorly from Galvin and his camp. I think that the big one for me was the leaking of the we don't think Benji Marshall can coach. You know, that is a legend of the game. And whether you agree or disagree, well, first of all, if I have to give my honest opinion, I don't think a 19-year-old is equipped to make that call yet. You can disagree with coaches and you can say, I feel this way or that way. But to make the hard call of, I don't believe he can coach good enough to improve me, I just don't know if he's equipped for that way. And that's where I feel like he's probably got people around him suggesting, that this isn't the way the best clubs do things. And if we went to this club and that club. And so that's where I'm, if anything, like I'm not like angry at Lachie Galvin or upset at him. He's a 19-year-old. If that's the worst thing he does in his life, like that's nothing compared to a lot of 19-year-olds. But I'm disappointed for the young fella because I know how long these things hang around with people, and I think that unfortunately, although he probably didn't mean any malice by the way it's all been handled, it's probably going to be interpreted that way by older players, by the playing group, by fans. But before we continue, the maestro, how you going, brother?
Not too bad, Campy. I've been shocked slightly by how hard his teammates seem to have turned against him. I can understand it from one perspective. You've been inside clubs where I'm sure there's been problem with their players in there, but the stuff that's been coming out on social media and how that's affected things, the fact he's been dropped to New South Wales Cup this week, it seems the Tigers as a club have battened down the hatches, and that's where I really feel for Lachie, because he's made a decision that perhaps, as you said, and I agree with you on that aspect, not the most advisable, and now he's going to feel the heat for the next 2 years now. Like, we could have a Gordon Tallis situation for the next 2 years here, looking down the track.
Yeah, so look, the post from Jerome Luai I've got no issue with.
Right.
I really don't, because the thing is, as a playing group, when a 19-year-old comes out and is quoted essentially saying, this playing group and club is not the best for my development.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is disrespectful. You're talking
Of course it is.
You're talking about premiership winners.
Yep.
Like, I would never, as a 19-year-old, imagine me. Lachie had won, 5 premierships by the time I'd arrived at the club, 4 or 5. Imagine me releasing a statement. Because Jerome Luai he's played Origin. He's led his country to a World Cup final. He's won 4 premierships. Like, imagine if you're Jerome Luai sitting there going, bro, so this team isn't good enough for you, is it? And that's where it just probably wasn't the smartest way to handle it, especially after the leaking of the Benji Marshall can't coach thing. I think if this would have been handled better, it could have been a joint statement from the club. It could have been a come together. Okay, yes, we've had a really good chat. But the fact that the club and him have all released it all separately clearly means that this hasn't been handled properly. Anyway, so that's where I go. I think the Taruva one was silly. He just shouldn't have done it. Like, is it the end of the world? No, but it's just silly. It doesn't help the Tigers' cause, which is, what you should be worried about is the Tigers' cause. But to come out publicly and essentially say to your teammates that, this club, so everyone, all the work that you do, those forwards that every time they cross the line, they risk their body to give the halfback space, they bash their bodies up, then I'm going to release a statement saying that this club isn't good enough. Like, every time you cross that line, I know it's traumatic, but you're putting your life on the line playing rugby league. And so those forwards every week, their job is to make Galvin shine.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's really important when you say these statements, you're thinking of everyone, not just like you and the club or you and your management or whatever. You're thinking of the playing group as well. And I think that that's probably where the biggest issue is. I think in regards to him knocking back the deal, he's totally within his rights to knock back the deal. The problem I have with it is when no one was interested in Lachie Galvin, or at least not many people, he signed a deal with the Jersey Flegg side, to my understanding. Then he had a bloody good preseason. And Benji Marshall took a huge risk on playing him. Like, he could have played Caesar, Sullivan, Fainu even, Dewey if he wasn't injured. Like, there was other people he could have selected.
Yep.
So he took a risk on him, played him. at the start of 2024, I don't think there would have been many clubs, if any, that would have debuted Galvin. And so I don't suggest that, there should be this like undying loyalty between club and player, because the problem is as soon as Galvin starts playing poorly, no club's going to be loyal to him.
No.
So there's the flip side of it. And so the only issue I have is that if a club comes to you and says, here is one of the biggest offers we've ever offered someone, and for you to turn around and just go, don't even bother. Like, think about all the administration that worked tirelessly to get you on the field, to make you the best version of yourself, the doctors, the physios, the people that cut up videos, the women in the office that, take care of every little thing that you need. It's endless. It is endless. They're putting all that work in so that when you run onto the field, you are the best version of yourself. I think you owe it to them to at least consider the offer. It's almost like going to someone's house, they cook this beautiful meal for you, and you go, don't even bother.
Yeah.
You'd eat it out of respect. And now, it's not a one-to-one analogy, because I'm not saying you have to take the contract out of respect. But I do think he at least owed the club to look at it until November 1st, to go, you know what, guys, I think that I'm going to go to November 1. I'm going to see where the club is at by November 1. But I'm just being honest with you. I will be checking my value on the open market. I think the big issue and like the real issue with the whole situation, where it all stems down to, it's the don't even bother offering the contract. I think the club has earned more than that with what they've done for Lachie Galvin.
Does it confuse you from a pure footy sense? We've had a great text in here already from Craig. How could Galvin be on a better trajectory than he is right now? Rookie of the year in his first year for the RLPA awards. Obviously, the suspension ruled him out of that at the Dally M's. An entire game plan and roster centred around him, a coach that excelled in his position and playing alongside a four-peat champion and a team who has drastically improved. They look like they're going to be fighting for the top 8. Like, this is not the Tigers of 3 years ago who looked directionless and had a salary cap that was out of whack. This is a team that looks as though it's going places. Is he going to be able to go to a club that is better suited to him than the West Tigers on a purely football front?
Yeah, and so I just want to get so I've just got a text in say, guys, here's a text from Elibana Eel.
Yeah.
Until I see the footage of Lachie Galvin saying that he doesn't think Benji can coach, I don't believe it was said. So you can take it with a grain of salt. Here's the quote. Like, this is literally his statement. I just feel as I move into an important period of my development as a half that I continue to build my game at a different club. Like, that's all you need to hear. You don't like if you don't know what he's saying there, you're clearly not listening to what he's saying. He's saying that the current club he's at is not the best for his development. And so, not only that, there was the article from Chamis that, dealing with Lachie Galvin's side, basically implying that they don't believe that Benji Marshall is a good coach. So the idea that he hasn't said that, it just doesn't sit well with me. I think he does believe that. And look, he's well within his rights to feel that way. But as I said, there are certain social norms and respect for, like, whenever you're in a group environment, you don't just walk in willy-nilly, say whatever you want. The team matters. Everyone's feelings matters because you are working for each other. So there are certain ways to handle things. I think that I just think that he could have handled it a little bit better. And as I said, I actually do feel sorry for him because he hasn't done anything technically wrong. He can go wherever he wants to go. He can be at whatever club he wants to be at. But at the same time, it just could have been handled a lot better without making your teammates feel like you think you're better than them and they're not good enough for you. Now, the big issue that I do have, though, is him saying, so he came out and said, any suggestion that I already have a deal done at another club for 27 is simply not true. Well, a deal is not done. But when you say, I feel that as I move into an important period of my development as a half, that I continue to build my game at a different club. So you're telling me that this guy knocked back the $6 million deal without even knowing that these other clubs that are better are interested in him. Like, come on, bro. The other one that I was a bit like, the biggest reason why I made this call is so that the West Tigers have enough time to plan their roster without me in the future. Again, come on, bro. Like, that's not the biggest reason. You asked for a release last year. Like, to suggest that you just did this out of the goodness of your heart, like, that's just, unfortunately, it's just not true. So, in my opinion, anyway. So that's where I look at it. I feel sorry. I feel sorry mainly for the Tigers, first of all. The Tigers fans in the playing group. That's the three that I do. But I feel sorry for Galvin in the sense that he technically hasn't done anything wrong, but he's had a situation that he could have handled much better. Because imagine this. Imagine if he had to come out and said, guys, I went to the club. I said I'm going to wait till November 1st to see my value. And then all of a sudden the club said, okay, because you're going to wait till November 1, we're pulling our offer. He could come out to the public and say, I was going to wait till November 1. I just wanted to test my value. And yep, guys, I'm being honest. If I can get a better deal at a bigger club, then I'll look at that. I think he would have that would be handled a lot better than, just saying, don't bother offering anything.
They've done it with almost a blunt sword, haven't they? They've hacked through, what was probably the hardest route to take here.
Yep. The problem now with the statement as well is he's almost forced himself into a corner where he has to go to a club that has a clear, better system and coach. And how do you know those clubs want you? So, for example, let's list the clubs that we know for sure are in a better spot than the Tigers right now. Melbourne, Penrith, Bulldogs, Broncos, I guess.
Yeah.
Manly, DC's leaving.
Even when you say the Panthers, right? They're 1-5.
Yeah.
I know they're the 4-time premiers.
We can still say the Panthers. Yeah. Manly, DCE is leaving, so we don't know how they're going to turn out. So in reality, because this statement is all about him just wanting to be a best version of himself, unless he lands at the top 4 sides, a lot of people are going to be like, well, it wasn't about that then, was it? And so that's where I just look at it. I feel really bad for the Tigers. They tried as hard as they could. They fought tooth and nail to get off the bottom of the table. They brought all these people to the club. They built a game plan around him. And look, sometimes players just want to move on. That's fine. But I still feel sorry for them. I actually really respect the way they've handled it, though. They didn't get dragged into negotiations. They didn't get dragged all the way till the end. I feel sorry for the playing group, and I feel sorry for the fans, mainly. But I also do feel sorry for Galvin because I think he's not going to really understand the gravity of this situation until he's a little bit older. And he's probably going to look back and go, you know what, I could have got the same outcome and handled this completely differently. But I just want to reiterate, Lachie Galvin hasn't done anything wrong. He's well within his rights to want to be at another club. There's nothing wrong with that. And so when people go overboard with the insults and the keyboard warriors, he's a young man. We're talking about a 19-year-old, guys. Remember when you were 19? Yes, you should be held accountable for what you do, but we all have done some stupid things when we're 19. And so just let's remember that this guy's a young man that is just learning with a lot of weight and pressure on his shoulders. We can hold him accountable for what he did, but don't be silly. Don't be crazy and sending him all this weird stuff online and being an idiot and carrying on in comment sections. We can be critical of a decision without being critical of the human being. He is more than well within his rights to be able to choose to be at another club. And just remember that he's a human being that's 19 years old. And at the end of the day, the worst thing he's done is just handle a situation not the best. Outside of that, he's well within his rights to want to be at another club. It's not wrong. It's not ethically bad. So let's please just remember that. He is still a person. He hasn't killed anybody. He hasn't broken contract. He hasn't done any of that. He's just looked at another club and felt like he wants to be there instead. So let's just always remember that with a young 19-year-old footy player, guys. This is not the end of the world. All right, we're going to go to a break. We've still got plenty more to talk to. The transfer system. We've got all these texts to get to. And we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Got plenty of texts flying through. How much blame do you put on Galvin's management around him? He's a young bloke, and right now he looks so bad, but I can't help think he clearly has no one in his ear giving good advice. Yeah, I mean, as I said, if it was a 30-year-old, you would just say, I don't care who's representing you. You're a 30-year-old, mate. You make it. As a 19-year-old, I do feel like a lot of this has to do with advice he's being given, and who knows? Maybe the advice is correct. He might end up at one of the powerhouse clubs and go on to win a premiership. I've got no issue with him wanting to go to a different club. Absolutely none whatsoever. It's more just the way things have handled. Got some more text here. Denon, you're over-dramatising those quotes. That doesn't say that he necessarily can't coach. All right, well, I'll add more to you. If that quote didn't get you across the line. So Andrew Webster said that, two different sources. Andrew Webster said that Lachie Galvin's manager went in with a list to the CEO of the Tigers of all the things that they weren't happy with, and that included Benji Marshall and some of the things about that. And the CEO of the Tigers said, "Mate, put that list away. I'm not going to be listening to that." And Michael Chamis, speaking to people from Galvin's team, was quoted saying he has no faith in Benji Marshall as a coach that can help him go to the next level. So, I mean, look, if I haven't got you across the line there, I just don't know what else I could say, bro. There's also another text here. He wants a proper 7 to mentor him, and his childhood hero in Moses can be that. Look, maybe that's the case, but man, if Luai as a 4-time premiership winning half isn't good enough to get you over the next few years, and look, not even isn't good enough, is so not appealing that you're willing to say don't even bother offering. Like that's the clincher for me. It's the don't even bother offering. Like you're not even giving them an opportunity. Whereas that's so rare. Like usually in 99.9% of the cases, a young guy at a club will look at it and think, okay, thanks for that offer. I've looked at that and I'll weigh the pros and cons. And, I've got a club built around me here and I'm a junior and they took a punt on me when I was younger. Okay, now I'm going to look at the Eels. Okay, Mitchell Moses. This is a very rare situation that this happens. And what makes it even rarer is he shouldn't be speaking to clubs right now. So he is, by the letter of the law to what we know and what they've implied with the quote, he is truly knocking back $6 million without even knowing that anyone else is interested. So that's super, super interesting. Alrighty. Now, the forgotten man in all this. I always try to look for a positive. First of all, one positive would be we move past this. In the next few weeks, it'll be over. We'll move past it. That's what rugby league does. So it's not the end of the world. However, the forgotten man in all this, it's Adam Doueihi. Back in 6, how good is that? Here's a guy that had a bunch of injuries, got forced out to the outside backs in the centres, been quite solid there. He's been brought back in. He has an opportunity to lock that down. Fainer was still really young. I think he's currently injured as well. That's a huge, huge win and a great story about a bloke that just kept turning up, kept trying, and he's back in the position that he wants to be in. So that's a huge, huge win. So there's that. Okay, in regards to the player response and, as I said, I think the Taruva one was a bit silly. However, I actually didn't mind the Jerome Luai one because, again, with that public statement of saying, I feel like at another club I'm going to, excel and be the best version of myself. You are saying to the current playing group that everything here right now for me is not good enough for what I want. And unfortunately, you're going to get bite backs from that. To expect that no one's going to turn around and go, hang on a sec, how dare you as a 19-year-old say that this club isn't good enough for you? We bleed every week for this club and for each other. And so there's going to be back and forth. So although I thought the Taruva one just didn't need it, I can understand why, people are a bit frustrated with those comments. A 19-year-old telling guys like Appy and Jerome Luai and people like Terrell May that's come to the club, it's I can understand why they're a bit frustrated. Now, we've got a text here. He's allowed to speak to whoever he wants. He just can't sign anything official until November. No, I don't think he can. He can't negotiate right now. I think he can only start negotiating after November 1. You can't have full-on negotiations willy-nilly. We're talking about that would be someone signing a 3-year deal and then. Okay, so there's another text here saying, Kempe, you're wrong. You can talk to clubs. You can't make an offer. Okay, well, you know what? We'll check. We'll check if that's true, that you're allowed to basically negotiate a deal, but you're not allowed to make an official offer. I mean, if that is the case, that is the absolute wild, wild west. I'm pretty sure the Tigers have said that he can't speak to anyone else yet. And I've seen coaches actually say they shouldn't be speaking to anyone. So so you can't negotiate. Where does that say that? So the NRL website. So you can't negotiate. Yeah. I thought so. I was I'm more than happy to say I'm wrong, but I thought I was taking crazy pills. Could you imagine you sign a deal and then 3 years out from your deal's finishing, you're already all right, let's just start negotiating the next one. I mean, imagine how much that would keep clubs on their toes, where you could just go, you know what, I'm off contract in 2028, but this club just offered me $1 million. You better match it. Okay, here's another text. Kempy, good afternoon, Denon. Come on, you are joking. No excuses. It's professional sport. Lachie Galvin has to accept responsibility for his decision he's made now. Where is his loyalty to the Tigers? He wanted out 3 times since he started in grade, according to the last CEO of the Tigers. Lachlan and his manager could have waited to know. Bro, I don't know what you've been listening to. I feel like I literally have just been saying that he should be held accountable as a 19-year-old. I will say as well, the idea that I want out because I don't feel I'm going to get the best out of Benji Marshall, it just doesn't pass the pub test for me, because he actually signed an extension in 2024 to be upgraded from Jersey Flegg into the top 30, and it was a 3-year deal. So that's when Benji was the full-time coach. And so when you're trying to make first grade, it's okay to sign a 3-year deal. Then all of a sudden you do make first grade and you start asking for releases. It just doesn't pass the pub test. But anyway, as I said, he's more than welcome to be at the club. It's okay. Brad the Owl, he's saying nope, he can. Talk to Lee Pentelis. Okay, so the NRL. Okay, Maestro, read out what the NRL website says.
Hang on, sorry, I've just lost it. Here we go. But we'll get it back up.
Hey, they're standing strong in the comments, in the text messages. They're standing strong. Now I've got more text here. Luai's a 5/8. Galvin leaving is a good thing for the Tigers. I mean, I think he's been going pretty good at 7, if I'm being honest. I think Luai absolutely can play 7. Will the Gold Coast Land Baron ever be back at the show? Mike, no, unfortunately, Smithy, he's too busy at the moment. There is a difference. Okay, so Brad the Owl, he's backed up his comment. He said there's a difference between negotiating and negotiating. One is on paper and the other is with a third party, so it's illegal. Like, that's a what? You can't say. So you're basically saying you can't. You can, but do it in an illegal way. What do you got there, Maestro?
Yeah. So you cannot. Yeah. This is basically, we're benchmarking against both domestic and international sport. There has been, this is of 2018, there's been an introduction of a November 1 anti-tampering deadline for coaches that prevents them from talking to opposition clubs before they reach the final year of their contract with their current club. So they basically, their incumbent club has an exclusivity period until November 1 of the year prior to their contract ending.
Yeah, so to suggest that you just got to do it illegally. No, I think you shouldn't be negotiating with any clubs. Got some more text here. Afternoon, Kempy. On player movements in the NRL, I've always believed that the whole trade period should start. Oh, getting smashed with text. Sorry, guys, but it just smashed about 10 texts through. Should start 10 days after the grand final, where clubs have 10 days to re-sign their players. Once sign their players up, can be traded up to week 4. Oh, this is all over the place. Sorry, guys. Anyway, basically, there's a trade period, Junior Smithy feels like. I actually don't mind that we stay in the headlines all year long. From a purely chaos content perspective, I don't mind that we stay in the headlines all year about transfers. It's actually really good for the game that we do that. However, it's just that November 1 a year early, it's too much for the fans. The fans shouldn't have to sit there and watch a player. Like, for example, Eels fans right now. Just watching Dill get around all year whilst I used to like around, I think it was like June 30 or something like that.
Well, they still have that. So you can still move on. You can still be signed for another club if you're granted a release before June 30. But it doesn't look like the Tigers are going that way with Lachie Galvin. He could be laying to waste for 2 years potentially.
Yep. Here's another text. You can negotiate, you just can't get caught negotiating. The system needs changing. It's like, okay, well, that's like saying you can pay someone $1 billion out of the salary cap, but you can't. Like, what? What are we talking about here? Okay, we are going to go to a break. There are thousands of texts coming through, guys, so we'll try to get to them all. Plenty more to talk about, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. I tell you what, this negotiation before November 1, it will not die. Another text. Boys, the word you're missing in all discussion about this is you can and cannot do is inquire. The clubs and managers are allowed to inquire about a player's contract status. They can't negotiate. By inquiring, however, you're subtly settling your intent, aren't you? No, I don't think you can do that at all. Like, I think there's literally exclusivity before November 1 on a player.
I think you can. I think Mark's right in. You can get clarity about when a player's contract ends, right? But that's
that would all
information
be public,
on the
that's public
NRL
information,
website,
so
right?
I don't think you could. Because that said, the thing that you read said exclusive anti-tampering.
Yeah. So you have an exclusive period to negotiate with the player before November 1 of the year, before their contract expires. It's like me, but I'm I'm sure you could, in theory, if I'm calling up for Matty the Water Boy, I want him to come and work here at SEN, steal him off bloke. I go, hey, Denon, when does Matty's contract end at bloke? You give me an answer. That's declaring my intent in a sense, isn't it?
I still think that like you would still get pinged because you'd have to take it further of like how long are you willing to pay for? Like for example, let's say look at Lachie Galvin's situation. Let's say a random club rang, when does his contract end? And he said it ends in 2027 or whatever, 26. For him to reject an offer, you reckon the manager's gone, well, I've had 2 clubs ask when your contract ends. It's like, come on, bro. Like, what are we talking about? You'd have to go much further than that with these bigger situations. Alrighty. I got some more big news. RLPA Clint Newton says a trade window wouldn't have stopped the Galvin saga. Responding to Wayne Bennett's comments after Lachie Galvin's situation that the veteran coach labelled the NRL hitting the self-destruct button. Newton told Sydney Morning Herald yesterday, there's no perfect model, but trade windows will not remove the speculation. Media and fans will always have an appetite for what players in their club will keep and which players they are chasing. The media cycles 24/7 and people click on that news. It's not Lockie's fault that we are talking about what he might do in 2027. Maybe there's a world where we live in one day where the NRL enforces clubs to not comment on announcements before a certain date, but for every player that chooses not to re-sign with their club, which remains their right, just like a club can choose to not re-sign a player, we can show another 20 players where despite having years to run on their contract, the club requests that they look elsewhere and they are no longer in their plans. Newton said one solution would be to try and limit the amount of public commentary from clubs and agents and stated the 2 biggest issues for clubs were fixed during the CBA negotiations. Young players being signed before the incumbent had a chance to watch them at a senior level before rival clubs poached them, and rival clubs talking to player agents before the last year of their contract. I see what he's saying, because he's saying like there will always be speculation, and also at the end of the day, in this situation, it was the Tigers that came out and said that we're not going to offer him a deal because he didn't ask for it. But I still think the November one is way too early. Like, I still think that there's a difference between speculation and someone actually signing a deal. Let's say November 1 hits and someone signs a deal in November, and then the whole year they're playing for a club whilst they're going to be somewhere else next year. I still think, I personally think June 30 would probably, I like that. Because you can almost, it's almost like a bit of a farewell for a player. Let's say you've got a really big player, you're on a big run, you might make a grand final that year, and he signs just after June 30 with the club. Like, yeah, it's disappointing, but it's almost like a farewell last 6 rounds. Whereas like a whole season, it's like, it's just strange. It's really strange. So, but I do understand in this situation, he's absolutely right. Like, this was the club that came out and did this. You can't blame Lachie for the fact that they came out publicly and said that he will not be at the club now, you know. However, I think you can blame Lachie and the Galvin and his team for just the way it was like, don't even bother offering. It's a lot. Okay, let us know on the text 0457 736 736. Do you think there needs to be a trade window? Now, we are going to... Galvin missing the point. None of this would have come to a head if Tigers had left negotiations until 01 November. However, the management insisted in pushing the extension, which was rejected, so they needed to take a lot of the blame as well. No, that's not what happened. The management literally said, don't bother offering. Don't bother offering. And Galvin has already come out and said, he said the reason why I told the Tigers that I'm not signing here is to give them a long time to sign someone else. So you are right in the sense that the club came public with it and they said they're not going to offer anything. However, the management of Lachie Galvin and Lachie Galvin did not say to them, I want to wait till November 1st. Can you give me that time? That's actually not kind of how it all happened. Mark, why did Shane Richardson have to try and get a contract extension with Galvin now? Why couldn't he wait until round 27 last Thursday? See, that's the thing, Mark. I think if Lachie Galvin was like, give me some time, Shane Richardson probably would have waited. But it's the key point here is that Lachie Galvin and the management, Lachie Galvin has admitted that he has told them the reason why he told them so early that he will not be signing with the club is to give the club as much time as possible to sign someone else. So, the reason why Shane Richardson came out the way he did is because he's trying to control the narrative. He doesn't want it to get leaked that Lachie Galvin came to them and said, I'm not signing with you. He wants to be able to show strength from a club perspective. Okay, here's another text. We'll just wrap it up real quick. Sorry, Kempy, I was trying to quickly send a message before. I had to drive, given, again, while loaded on player movements in the NRL. The player trade period should start 10 days after the grand final. Clubs have 10-day period to re-sign their players. After the re-signing period, players can be traded between clubs up to a week 4. A mid-season trade period should open for 10 days on the Thursday after Game 3 of Origin. Any uncontracted players have up to round 8 to sign with the club. Players' contract should be set so whatever the agreed value of the contract is stays at value. Players can't leave a club for more money whilst under contract. I do like that one. I never like players that get early releases and then get paid somewhere else. It really, really does frustrate me. Alrighty, we're going to head to a break. Plenty more to talk about. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money every day at Chemist Warehouse. Now, we've got some big news. Last week, the Roosters beat the Broncos, and I'd just love to speak about, now obviously, the off-field stuff happened. Everyone's talking about that to death. But I just want to talk about how crazy this NRL season is. Anyone can beat anyone. So the Roosters beat the Penrith Panthers. They're paying $11, and then they go out to the Brisbane. They're paying $5, and they beat the Broncos. And it's just, although yes, okay, Melbourne Storm are in the league of their own right now. They are above everyone else. But I think that it's just so good. Even as a Broncos man that was devastated to see my team lose and very frustrated. But isn't it good to going into each weekend not really knowing who's going to win? It is so good. It's so good for the game of rugby league. So it's going to be interesting to see, who is the biggest dark horse? Let us know. 0457 736. Who is the dark horse to make the 8? Who is the dark horse to make the 8? Because right now, the 8 is so uncertain. You look at the ladder, and, I think that this will change quite a bit by the time we get to the end of the season. But obviously, you've got the Dogs on top. You've got Melbourne Storm 2nd. You got the Bronx 3rd, Raiders 4th, Rabbitohs 5th, Warriors 6th, Tigers 7, Manly 8, and then the Sharkies 9, Dragons 10. You look at that and you go, okay, is there a world where the Tigers make the 8? Is there a world? I hope this doesn't derail the season. The Raiders looking pretty good, So I just love the fact that we've got some dark horses that could squeeze into the 8. And if someone can knock off the Melbourne Storm, you just never know. All right, going to head to a break. See you on the other side. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. What an hour it was. We've got texts flying in. Lachie Galvin situation. Should the transfer market be changed? Plus plenty more. So make sure to tune in. We've got the second hour coming up. An absolutely huge second hour. We've got big talks about Origin. It's nearly here. It's actually not, look, round 11 or 12 is when Origin happens. So let's start talking a bit of Origin footy. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money every day at Chemist Warehouse. Got a text here. Come on, Kempy. You all talk about defence-winning competitions. Storm averaging 20 points against per game. Have had one hard game and got beat by the Dragons. Okay. Steve, he reckons that the Storm aren't favourites. Okay, fair enough, mate. You might make a fair bit of money if you can rustle up who is your favourite, because they wouldn't be with the bookies. I still think Storm are easily the best side of the competition right now. Also, a bit of breaking news. There's the RLPA will be holding talks with the Tigers in regards to the whole fallout and Lachie Galvin's mental welfare. With this all. And I do think that's really important, guys. And that's what I tried to reiterate in the first segment, guys. You can be critical of a decision without having a crack at the young man. He's 19 years old. If he who has no sin casts the first stone. Seriously, come on. We've all done some way worse things when we're 19. So they can be critical while also understanding this is a young man with everyone talking about his contract situation. So we always need to make sure that the mental health is first and foremost. Okay, now let's talk some Origin. Decisions beginning to stack up for Laurie Daly, particularly given the shoddy start to the season for the four-time premiers Penrith Panthers. At fullback, we got Dylan Edwards, down from 231 metres a game last year to 191 in 3 this year. Tedesco, he has 5 line breaks, 6 games, averaging 200 metres per game. Pappenhausen, 5 games, 5 tries, 5 line breaks, 2 try assists, less punch out of his own half than Eddie and Teddy. Edwards and Teddy. Travojevic, injury struggles. Charlie Mitt is in at number 6. I think it is interesting. I I really do think that you're looking at the fullback position and, Dylan Edwards, although he's getting through a bunch of work, he had 30-plus runs last week. You always want to pick form. You don't want to be picking, and we'll talk about the other side of things in a second, which is, going to be really interesting. But the Edwards, Tedesco, Pappy situation. I actually think Teddy should be in the conversation. Now, I know people go, you dirty Queenslander, how dare you speak on our team? But I just think Edwards at the moment, he does look like he is a bit frustrated and lacking a bit of confidence. Now, I'm not saying that you would just definitely pick Teddy, but I'm saying that I don't think that jersey is just locked down. It's not like Edwards has had 5 good series and he's just a bit down on form. I'd even argue Edwards was a little bit quiet for the period after Origin last year. So if I had to select a side right now, I'd be going with Edwards. But I think that there's a bit of pressure, just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit of pressure on Edwards to begin to step up heading into the Origin period. Pappenhausen's an interesting one because I think with Pappenhausen, he definitely should be in the conversation, but it's more about what style of fullback do I want? Because if you don't need a meter eater, if you're going to sit here and say To'o will be sweet, Lomax will be sweet, then all of a sudden you go, okay, let's get a fullback that's ball playing and blistering pace through the middle is going to open the game up for us. And so it really is like if let's say you were sitting there going, okay, I don't care about meters. I actually want a fullback that can create room around the ruck and speed. You'd definitely be looking at Pappenhausen. So as I said, right now I would lean toward Edwards, but I think there's some open questions. Now here's a big question for you. Oh yeah, I'm going to get spicy, baby. I'm going to get spicy. Now, make it extremely clear. Right now, Kalen Ponga is my fullback. Right now. Lock him in. Put him in there. My boy. I love KP Wax. So fresh. So fresh. However, a bit quiet the last few games. Jai Gray. He's a Queenslander. Currently leading the Dally M. I just think, like right now, he's still a bit away from being in the conversation. But I think if this continues where his form keeps going like that, and KP is a little bit quiet and Knights are struggling, I do think that Billy Slater, we have known him to make some pretty radical calls. Look back at Reece Walsh. Hadn't played in Origin. KP was the incumbent, one of the best fullbacks of the series before, and Billy Slater picked on form. Now, granted, a little bit different situation with Kalen Ponga at that time struggling with returning from injury and some head knocks. So quite a bit different situation. But I put forth to you that, if this continues, and I want to be clear, KP, right now, he's my man. And for another few weeks, he's my man. But if Jai Gray keeps going like this, and KP and the Knights are a bit quiet, I wonder whether Billy Slater just looks across and says, do we look at Jai Gray or at least bringing him to the squad? Maestro, speak to me.
Well, Reece Walsh is the incumbent here, right, Kempy?
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's been a lot of questions about his form at the moment, but is he even close to the conversation? I mean, his talent brings him there, right? But is he in Billy Slater's thinking? To what level is he in Billy Slater's thinking? What does he have to do over the next 6 weeks to make a push for that jersey, which is his still at the moment?
Reece Walsh? I think at the moment, Reece Walsh, his main focus should just be club footy.
Right.
I think that, if he just hits his straps and he plays like we know he can play, Reece Walsh, for sure. But I think that he's in a bit of like any great superstar, he's in a transition period of his career. And I think he got to a certain point where he was just free and just playing some of the most beautiful rugby league you could see. And, we got caught up in the highlights, and rightly so. I'm such a fan of Reece Walsh. He is one of those true, unique players that brings people into rugby league. Yep. But those brilliant things we saw, just like any rookie, there is no rookie that comes into the game complete. Nathan Cleary didn't come into the game complete. There were parts of his game that he needed to work on, and you could maybe make the argument that because his team around him was playing so well, that it just plastered over those little parts of his game a little bit in 2023.
Yep.
And so I just think that right now he's focused on, instead of just playing the game freely, how do I become the best version of myself completely? And that's all the defensive stuff. That's making sure my kick coverage is really good. And we've seen moments of that where his defense has improved dramatically, where his kick coverage on the weekend probably wasn't as good as he would have hoped. And so I just think that right now with Reece Walsh, he's in a transition phase where I believe he'll come out of the other side an even better player than he was in 2023. But right now, it's just about building out his game and not allowing the great stuff to just patch over the not so great stuff that needs to work on. And we have to remember, he's 22.
Yeah.
He's so young. Now, what about the hammer? What about the hammer? Look, the hammer for me, mate, I'm putting him in centre every single day of the week.
Right.
Absolutely. You know why? Because there's not a single player that's actually been able to go one-on-one with Tom Trbojevic other than the hammer. And so if Tommy is back by now, you'd have to assume he'd be in the centres. This is how good the hammer is in defence. He went, I think, 5 to 6 origins with missing like one, maybe no tackles. He went a long period without missing a single tackle at centre. And that's why he is a must at centre for me. And although, yes, and the good thing about him at centre is he can cover fullback and he can cover wing. So there's that as well. And so I think that, the reason why you have to put him at centre is because he's the best there. Like you could argue when he's in form, he's the best origin centre. Played centre for Australia. And so that's where I look at it and I go, I think that right now, KP would be the one selected. If Reece Walsh can find his form again, absolutely consider him. But I think Jai Gray, he's just creeping up on the pack that may not be considered before. Now, I've got some text here. Kempy, really? You cane toads have been bragging about Queensland pick and stick mentality for decades, and where you don't pick on form but on loyalty to Maroon. Now you're suggesting the New South Wales selectors choose on form, not loyalty? Yeah, nice try, Kempy, but we aren't buying it. In Laurie, we trust. Okay? Right, you got me, Bulldog.
Origin period, man.
Okay, you stay loyal then, brother.
We've got 6 weeks.
Mate,
this is what it's going to be.
And also, I think this whole pick and stick thing, it worked because the Queensland side had a core of greatness. That's why they could pick and stick, because they just needed people to come in and do a job, and their spine, they built everything around that. Whereas, they don't have that luxury anymore. No team has that luxury right now. And so that's where I just go, you're probably... There's been such a flux of players and everything in and out of Origin in both sides right now that, pick and stick for me would be more along the lines of key positions like 6s and 7, potentially even 9. But at fullback, especially when you've got Dylan Edwards and Tedesco that are so similar, like in the way they play, that's where you really keep open for form in selection. But I get it, mate. I'm a dirty Queenslander. I'm co-opting everything. What's the word? I'm a double agent.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm a double agent.
In behind enemy lines, mate.
Yeah, just trying to mess with the program. Maestro, who would you pick right now at Queensland, and who would you pick right now for New South Wales at fullback?
For New South Wales, I'd actually go Teddy.
Okay.
Just his output and the fact he's been there. I think he was so... I know Edwards deserved his shot last year, and it ended up getting them at shockies, right? He plays game 2 and 3, and they win the series. So that's fantastic. But on form, I have to go back to Teddy, and someone who has proven at that Origin level for so long. I think he's back to that level, what we've seen at the start of this year. For Queensland, I'm with you on Ponga, but I'm more open to Hammer at the back.
Okay, Hammer at fullback.
Yeah, just because of such a terrific athlete. But you're convincing me on the centres argument because Queensland are light in that area.
Yeah, otherwise you'd have to bring Val and Gagai back. I
don't think that's really an option. Kurt Capel played the series. I know he was up front last year, but you're not going to play him in the centres any longer.
Do you go on a rookie with Purdue? Do you put Purdue in the centres?
He's been playing that well.
Yeah, but it's early. Whereas Hammer, I think he plays so good at centre, you have to keep him there. He played centre for Australia and killed it.
Yeah.
And so
you've argued me around on that one.
Okay. Anyway, we are going to head to a break. After the break, we got wing to talk about. We got lock to talk about. We got second row to talk about. And yes, it's a dirty Queenslander talking about your New South Wales team. I'm going to keep doing it. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the captain's run. Got some text here. Dylan Edwards still looks injured, especially when the hammer ran past him the other day. Has to be Pappenhausen at fullback for New South Wales. You can't buy speed. Regarding Queensland fullback, I couldn't give a rat's. Wow, there we go. In regards to centres, I forgot to mention before, the centre will be Howarth.
Howarth?
Yeah, it'll be the Hammer and Howarth. The double H's, baby. Double H. Okay, let's get into some other positions. Also, just quickly, a quick correction. On Monday, we were talking about the Knights.
Right.
And we were frustrated at the fact that Hastings didn't get picked. And we found out, Hastings, the reason he didn't get picked was because he was having a child. So, sorry about that. about to the Knights fans. We were sitting there really frustrated, going, "Why wouldn't you pick Hastings? You know, you can play 7. You put Phoenix back at 9." But we were incorrect. He couldn't get picked because he was at the birth of his child. Congratulations to Hastings. Okay, let's get to wing. To'o, still one more likely for the squads, but then you got Zach Lomax with a foot injury. It's going to be interesting with the wing position because, look, I would personally be leaning towards To'o and Lomax. I mean, they could honestly play maybe even 1 game, 2 games, and they'd be back in for me. But you got guys like Kiraz that was called into the Australian squad but didn't actually play because he was injured. In regards to the second row, oh, yeah, this one's a tough one. You've got Liam Martin under more pressure to retain his spot. Me personally, I just think at least for game 1, Liam Martin has to be there. But then you've got Angus Crichton. He's another incumbent. You've got Hudson Young. You've got Olakawatu. You've got Jacob Preston. You've got Keon Kolamatongi. You've got plenty more. And so the back row option for New South Wales is a super intriguing watch to see where they go with that. Me personally, I would probably stick with Crichton Martin and have Olakawatu and Young on the bench. And then maybe, in the starting side, you'd probably have either Barnett and... you'd have Barnett and Payne Haas or May and Payne Haas. And so that's probably my front row for the moment for the New South Wales.
You listed Terrell May as your best signing of the season so far last week.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. He's been absolutely incredible.
Is that enough for a Blues jersey?
I think so. Absolutely. If he keeps playing the way he is, there's no way you can keep Terrell May.
I can't think of a New South Wales front rower that is playing really even close.
Well, outside of Payne Haas.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, and so I honestly...
2 trucks.
I'd nearly go as far as to starting Terrell May, but in saying that, maybe you start Barnett and you bring Terrell off the bench. However, I wouldn't mind Barnett's leg speed off the bench. He actually was quite good when he did come off the bench for New South Wales last year. It's a tough one. Now, in regards to the Queensland side, forwards, look, I think you have to go up front. This would be my team, at least right now. It would be Paddy Carrigan, Tino up front.
Yep.
Ruben Cotter at 13. And then on the bench, I'd strongly either consider going Dearden and Max Psychoplath or Dearden and Kurt Mann along with a back rower and a front rower. I know that's 2 small fellas on the bench, but Kurt Mann and Plath can both play 13, 6, 9 at a pinch. And I just don't mind. I just don't mind. I go to text here. Come on, Kempy. Liam Martin beat best second row in the comp in the past 5 years. You reckon he deserves one? Turn it up. What? Okay. I don't know. I said I'd pick Liam Martin in the first game. If he plays poorly, then obviously you look to replace him. I don't think you'd stick. If Liam Martin comes in, plays poorly, and you've got all these gun back rowers killing it, I think you'd probably look to maybe put him on the bench and bring him off the bench. But I actually think he'd play pretty well. I think he'd play pretty well in the game 1. Now, in regards to the forwards, look, I don't think Kafusi's going to be there. I think he's probably aged past it. I don't think Fodawaker's going to be there. Kurt Catewell's an interesting one because, what he brings in the intangible, like the kick chases and all that stuff, he does really well. But I actually think right now, Lindsay Collins, we don't know when he's going to be back with his knee. But I think right now, Corey Horsburgh's been outstanding. I think he'd be on my bench. And then hopefully Nanai keeps playing the way he's playing because ever since being dropped and being brought back in, he's been phenomenal. So you could go Corey Horsburgh, Nanai on the bench with either Kurt Mann and Dearden or Max Psychoplath and Dearden. And then on the edges to start, you would go... See, that's the question. Jeez. Yeah. Their edges are not... I mean, you've got Beau Fermor, but Titans aren't going that great.
Not the level of what New South Wales are throwing out
there.
Yeah,
geez.
In terms of depth, that's the big question mark for Billy Slater is how do you find a way to go up against them? Yeah, just quality.
Tell me 2 starting back row Queensland that are in the top 5 back rows in the comp.
They're just not.
Jeez.
They're just not.
Yeah, okay. So you'd probably have to go. Does Curdy Catewell get a recall and maybe Beau Fermor?
Yeah.
Or, or maybe if Nanai, he's confident again, Billy Slater knows how to get the best out of him maybe. It's a tough one.
I'm looking for answers. Text us in 0457 736 736. You got any advice for Billy Slater in that position? We'd love to hear it.
Okay, go to text here. Everyone says Payne Haas is the best forward in the game when it comes to NRL, but when has he dominated Origin? I'll tell you when he dominated Origin. Literally last Origin series. People want to crap on Cleary for not dominating. It's time for Haas to step up. Mate, go back and look at Payne Haas's Origin series last year. He was phenomenal, and he was the best front rower out of the lot. So, yeah, I've made very different opinion on that. I think that Payne Haas has been outstanding last year in Origin. The year before, he was pretty good. Here's a text, Jaden Sewer. Now, the only worry I have with Sewer is he got an opportunity last year, and he played pretty well in the first game, but then the next game he struggled, and then I think he was dropped for the third game.
Mm.
Now, he's been great for the Dragons this year. He really has, but I just get a little bit worried that when he came in, he struggled. Now, who knows? You never know with players. They could have injuries and all that. Got another text here. Max Plath on the edge. I don't mind it, but I just think he's so much better suited to the middle. Now, got other text here. Fafita. Mate, Fafita's been struggling to make the Titans side. I don't think he's going to be making the Origin side. Gilbert. I don't mind Gilbert. He's been solid. He hasn't set the world alight this year, though. And that's what I'm coming from. In regards to, if you said, does Queensland have back rows? Yeah, we got some good, solid ones. But it's more in relation to, geez, there is a real strength distance between New South Wales. Because, the fact that they got Liam Martin, more text. David Fafita. Wow, okay. Okay, we get a lot of Fafita text. That's interesting. Look, Fafita at his best, absolutely on the edge. You get Fafita at his best, he's going with anyone. Jairo, don't mind the Jairo chat. Don't mind the Jairo. As long as he's injury free. I don't want him going in there with niggly injuries. So Gilbert and Jairo, I don't mind that. Are you missing a bit of attacking flair with just those two potentially? But do you get it back with guys like Howarth and potentially? Kurtman bench here. I've already said Kurtman. I would have him or Max Psycho Plath on the bench. So, mate, some great texts here. I think right now, if I had to, gun to head, pick an edge, it would probably be Gilbert, and it would probably be trusting that Billy Slater gets the best out of Nanai.
Yeah. And
then I would be going probably from there. Fafita was injured. Desi started him off the bench for fitness and started on the weekend and killed it. For sure, as I said, Fafita at his best, absolutely, you're putting him on the edge, but we just don't know yet. Okay, here's a text from Mark. My Blues team would be, with injuries permitting, Tedesco, Lomax, Crichton, Latrell, To'o, Moses, Cleary, Yo, Crichton, Olakau'atu, Bennett, Robson, Haas, and the bench would be Watson, Kolomatangi, Martin, and Terrell May, Hudson Young, 18th man. Look, I think that keeping out Trbojevic, I think you've got to play him.
He's going to have 2 games before the teams are selected. If he comes back in round 10, Manly have the bye in round 9. He would be back in round 10, which would give him 2 games.
Yeah. I think that you'd have to, if he's fit and killing it like he always does, I think you've got to pick him. It's just the problem is that, where do you fit a guy like Crichton in? Because he's such a bloody good player. But I just think Latrell and Tommy Turbo probably game 1.
People are still getting nightmares about that game over in Perth, aren't they, up in Queensland?
Alrighty. That is us done and dusted on this segment, guys. Make sure to stay tuned because we've got some massive, big talking points. Ricky Stewart and Fogarty, huge talking point. Will he go to Manly? Won't he? Clauses being activated, not activated. Make sure to stay tuned. The big squeeze at the moment of the Raiders is they've had this long-term plan for at least 4 or 5 years now. They've got Sanders down to the club from the Eels. And you would have to assume when they had negotiation with Sanders, he was promised, not promised, but they at least implied that he'd be playing first grade regularly by either 2026, 2027. Now, that's pure speculation. I don't know that for sure, but I just struggle to believe why Sanders would sign with the Raiders instead of staying at the Eels and be, why would he sign with the Raiders now to be stuck behind Fogarty when he can be stuck behind Moses? You'd rather be, Moses is a current Origin player, so you're going to guarantee yourself some games throughout the season. And so, basically, what Ricky was alluding to was kind of like, Fogarty and Starling are playing the best they've ever played, or some of the best they've ever played, because of the pressure that is put on them by these younger guys. And also, at the flip side, he's kind of saying, like, there's always going to be competition for spots. That's how you play your best footy. And so it's really hard to kind of decode, is he talking to Fogarty there or is he talking to Sanders there? Is it Sanders that's getting impatient because they're looking to extend Fogarty next year? Or is it Fogarty saying, hey, hang on a sec, I don't want to stay here and play reserve grade while Sanders plays first grade next year? And also, he also said that, Fogarty is at the club to try to mentor a guy like Sanders. And so it's a tough one, man, because you look at it and you go, if Fogarty is being offered a Mozza, let's just say 500 to 600K from Manly for 2 years, and he's getting offered, maybe 350 from the Raiders and only a 1 year deal, you can't really begrudge Fogarty, you can't begrudge him taking that at the age that he's at, the bigger deal. He's at a point in his career where these contracts are not going to be lining up. This timing is not going to be lining up where a club legend's leaving. And so I think the Raiders are between a rock and a hard place because they can't extend Fogarty too far because they've got a plan, and it's a good plan. I love their plan. I really respect what the Raiders are doing. But at the same time, from Fogarty's perspective, it's like, mate, you're basically asking me to gamble away another 500 to 600K that would be guaranteed in that second year. Maestro, what are you thinking, mate?
I think both sides have managed this really well. We've been talking about Lachie Galvin, everything that's gone wrong there. Everything that's gone wrong in the DCE situation, like the club not taking up their option, saying we don't want to stand in Jamal's way if he's going to take up a longer deal at another club. Like, can we first say, well done, Raiders? Like,
well, they said that, and then he said this.
Yeah, and I know, like, to an extent that's forced, right? Because if you do take up that option, you're going to have an unhappy player around the club on your hands. There's no real winners there. So,
so here's how the option works.
Yes.
So the club can take the option up.
Yep.
But then Fogarty has until round 24 or something like that. If he can't find a better deal, he can take a much reduced offer.
Yeah.
But the last thing that Fogarty said is the club, there's been no word on whether they're taking that option up yet.
Right. Okay.
That was on the ride home with Fletch and Sugar.
That makes the decision a little bit different.
Well, and so what I think Ricky Stewart is alluding to is like, let's negotiate a different deal.
Yeah.
Where we're not leaving Fogarty to round 24 where he gets to make the call.
Yeah.
And so maybe what they're saying, let's just say that Fogarty, if he that round 24 clause, let's say it means that he's on 350K.
Yeah.
And because it's a much reduced amount.
Yes.
Maybe Ricky Stewart's saying, we'll offer you 450, but you're not going to have that clause anymore. It means you've got to extend right now. Again, this is all speculation, but it seems to add up. It seems to me like the club doesn't want to be left and waiting until the end of the season to get an answer from Fogarty. It seems to me that the club wants an answer from Fogarty immediately or soon so that they can plan. However, the problem is this current deal that he's got, they agreed to it.
That's right.
They agreed to it when there was not much demand for Fogarty. Yes. They agreed to the deal, but now all of a sudden the market has changed dramatically. All of a sudden the power is not in the Raiders' hands; it's actually in Fogarty's hands. When the deal was agreed to, the power is in the Raiders' hands. Yes. And so, unfortunately, I think for Raiders fans, I just think that it's too good of a deal for Fogarty to pass up.
It's hard to see a future with him still at the club.
It really is. I would want to.
Yeah.
Like, from a purely selfish fan perspective and wanting the Raiders to fulfill this plan that they've been building for so long, I actually want him to stay at the Raiders because I love what they're doing now. I really, really do. But if, let's say because it's only a 1 year extension, it sounds like they're offering him. So that's 2026. So if he says yes to that, they could get halfway through next year and they offer him no deal. That means that he misses out on literally $600,000 that the Manly could have offered him. And so I don't think that the Raiders would be offering him $600,000 for just 1 year next year. And even if they were, it's still not a 2 year deal worth $600K each year. And so I feel sorry for Raiders fans, but I just think he's at an age now where you've just got to take that coin.
I've heard a couple of Raiders fans come out and push, well, we've been hearing them on the text line this week, come out and push for the club to offer Jamal a longer deal. But as you've just run through, right, that would hold up the Sanders plan.
Yeah, so, and that's why Raiders fans are just thinking, going, why don't we just give him another 2 years? It's like, well,
you might have the next big thing sitting there.
Yeah, and the plan has always been to bring Sanders through, and you don't want to. What Ricky was alluding to there is he doesn't want to lie to his older player, but he also doesn't want to break his word to the younger fella when he comes to the club. And if he was to give Fogarty that 2 year deal on $600K a year, he would most likely be breaking his word to the younger fella, and that's not what Ricky's about. And so that's what I do really appreciate from Ricky Stewart's perspective. And as I said, I think the tough thing for Raiders fans right now is when that deal was agreed to, the Raiders had all the cards. It wasn't like a lot of people were lining up to sign Fogarty. He was a bloody good half. He's actually one of the most underrated halves in the competition. You actually look at his win percentage at the Raiders, it's like 50 to 60% whenever he's playing, which is good in the NRL. But unfortunately, the DCE thing has just thrown everything into the woodwork. It's just crazy.
Are you happy with that fit at Manly if they do end up signing him?
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's very different to DCE. Like, they're going to have to play differently. But it's he's probably the best bang for buck half on the market right now.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of the only worry I have is like as long as he's fit and he's not got niggling injuries and all that kind of stuff. But you have to worry about that with everything. So really, really interesting. Keep an eye on the Raiders and also like let's say he does take that deal. Does Ricky Stewart go, well, let's just get this Sanders in now and start building towards next year potentially? I don't think he would do that just because the Raiders, like, who knows? They might make a grand final this year. Like, they towed the Broncos up. They're sitting in something like 5th or 6th. Like, who knows?
Last dance, baby.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, the year they did make the grand final, the 2 years before that, they didn't even make the finals. So you just never know. Their forward pack's up to it, that's for sure. And last year, if Fogarty plays most games, they absolutely make the finals.
Yep.
Watch that space. All righty. We're going to head to a break. After the break, plenty more to talk about, guys. Plenty more to talk about. And also, the Skipper Scope will be joining us very soon. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money every day at Chemist Warehouse. And do not forget, next Tuesday, 6 p.m, the bloke jerseys are dropping. Make sure to set your alarms, guys. You see them around all the time. You can get them at www.bloke.shop. They always sell out, so you'll want to be there. They go up to sizes 7XL, and they are the most in-demand jersey design we've ever had. That's next Tuesday, 7 p.m. But the great Justin Horo, Skipper Scope, is here.
The beak.
What's going on, brother?
Mate, just want to thank you you sent me a jersey out too, and I've got the big 7XL too. The big Scope's all draped out in the 7XL. He's put on a little bit of weight. But, mate, the jersey's the Mickey.
They're
well
good,
done.
eh? Yeah. Good. They're just the old school, made of the good stuff too.
Yeah.
Not like the material now that like rips in 2 seconds. It's actually made of the old school material.
It's the nostalgic feel about it, right?
Got a collar and everything, mate.
Yeah, nice.
Collar, everything. So that's at bloke.shop. Mate, Skipper Scope, what's been going on, mate?
Not too much, mate. 18 holes today.
How'd you go?
Average. Yeah, golf wasn't well, but plenty happening in the footy world, mate. I was listening to the show on the way in.
Yeah.
You were going through your Origin teams.
Yeah.
And obviously the first hour was all Lachie Galvin.
Yeah, all Lachie Galvin.
The Tigers situation.
Mate, I'd love to get your thoughts. Yeah. Right now, who are you picking for Queensland fullback and New South Wales fullback?
Fullback?
Right now,
Kalen Ponga.
Okay.
Yep.
Is Jai Gray a smoky for you?
No.
Okay.
No. Sorry, Matty. Matty the water boy's in here.
So let's say KP keeps playing the way he's playing. Yep. Jai Gray keeps playing the way he's playing. You wouldn't even consider it?
No.
Wow. Is it ball playing?
No, just because I've seen Kalen in that arena before.
Okay.
And I think it's more, Kalen's form's reflective of how the Knights are playing and less about the other way around. So I know he's tried and tested there. Jai Gray's a great story. And if he continues and has I'm always big on like a full season of playing first before we even start mentioning players in Origin. I can only think of a couple of guys probably that have jumped straight into that arena, and you put them straight in that arena. I love the form that he's in. Jai Gray,
incredible leader of the Dally M's right now.
So good.
Yeah,
and he's all like it's. I was speaking about this, maybe early in the week. Just the smaller guys, him and Mamazoulis has been really surprising for me. Yep. Like, I didn't think he was going to last.
Especially not 80-minute hooker.
No.
I thought he'd be more of an impact, crafty hooker around the ruck.
He's been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Jai, so I'm with you. Like, right now I'm picking KP. Yep. Right now I'm picking KP. But where we differ slightly, if KP stays quiet and Jai Gray continues to play like this, I think he's in the conversation. I think that he becomes is it that special selection that creates energy? Because I look at the back line for Queensland and I go, Xavier Coates, probably Talangi, then you can go Jackie Howarth, Hammer, and then probably at fullback, obviously KP. What about Reece Walsh? You didn't say any Walshy.
Walshy's just not there at the moment. Not this year for me anyway.
Do you agree with my take here? I reckon, just like any star, there's usually a year or so where they almost like take one step back to take 2 steps forward. And I feel like Reece Walsh is in that part of his career where, when you come onto the scene and everyone just cares about the great things that you do. But there was always a lot of holes in his game. But it was masked over by the fact that, and like any rookie, every rookie has holes in the game. Cleary came in, he had holes in his game. So it's not unique to Walshy. And they were playing so well. I just think this year he's had to take a step back to eventually take 2 steps forward. Like a lot of his defensive coverage with kicks and everything, up until last week, has been way better. His defense has gotten better. He's talking a lot more. What do you think? Where do you think he's at right now, Walshy?
Yeah, for sure he'll be back. But a couple of years ago, similar, when I had him clear-cut the fullback, he was beating out Kalen Ponga.
Yeah.
And Kalen went through a season where a couple of head knocks off the back of maybe some injuries at the back end of the season before as well. So just going through a period, and I heard you even talking about some of the back rowers in Queensland who, imagine, Jeremiah Nanai, this time last year, he was a lock to be playing back row, but things can change in a period and form can return in a really quick space.
Yeah.
So
especially with guys like Walshy.
That's my team right now, but would I be surprised if the Broncos and Reece Walsh go on a run and he's playing better than Kalen at the time and then he gets the one jersey? No, I wouldn't.
Yep.
But right now, Kalen... and I think it's clear-cut for Kalen because I like what you said about Hammer. He's done a really good job in the centres for him.
He's too good at centre movement, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So good.
And there's probably less depth in that position for me. So, yeah, Hammer in the centres.
What about Howarth? You agree with that?
I like Howarth.
Big boy. Get him in there. He can play on the forwards if he has to.
Yep. And so, to my Jai Gray point, I seen a full season of Jack Howarth last year.
Yeah.
Oh, not a full season, maybe 20 games. Yeah. Felt like he come in.
But he also debuted a couple of years before that too and played a few games.
Yep.
Actually, someone I didn't think about, do you go Tino, Carrigan up front, Trent Lioro at 13, Ruben Cotter off the bench for a bit of impact through the middle, bit of leg speed?
I would have the Bra over Lioro.
Okay.
I think the Horsburgh's thereabouts.
Oh, Horsburgh's on my bench no matter what.
He's on your bench?
Yep.
So...
You know what? I
wouldn't be surprised.
My bench is this, so you can get an idea.
Okay.
My bench at the moment. At the moment, my selection, and this is without Lioro in it. But if I was to go Lioro in it, obviously Cotter would be on the bench. Anyway, this is my starting side. It would be Carrigan, Tino up front. I like them in Origin up front together.
Yep.
At 13, it would be Cotter or Lioro, but let's just say Cotter. On the bench, it would be Dearden. Then it would be either Kurt Mann or Max Psychoplath.
Yep.
Corey Horsburgh. And then an edge back rower in like Nanai or something like that.
Yeah. I think just with the way that Billy, has sort of picked in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes with someone like Tom Gilbert on the edge, and then maybe even like a guy like Ruben Cotter, which opens up more space. I think there's better depth through the middle than the edges this year.
You've got Lioro, Horsburgh, Tino,
Kurt Mann. You mentioned him, Plath.
Yep.
Even Jermaine Hopgood's not playing great for the Eels, but he was thereabouts a couple of years ago. So there's more depth through the middle. So therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a guy like Ruben Cotter named in the front row, and then he's popped up and started on the edge before for him, because I don't know, Billy sort of goes for more of those reliable, steady sort of back rowers, going to make all their tackles.
Just quickly, number 14 jersey for Queensland will be Hunt or Dearden.
I'd have Dearden over Hunt.
Oh, okay.
Because I was ready to make the change last year as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Skipper Scope, he's spoken. We'll get his thoughts on the Lachie Galvin situation in the next hour. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money every day at Chemist Warehouse. The first 2 hours have been absolutely jam-packed. First hour, Lachie Galvin. In that same hour, we had Transfer Market. We had plenty of text. We had plenty going on first hour. Second hour, Jamal Fogarty and the issue at with Ricky Stewart and Willie Simon with Manly Woney. We had audio from Ricky Stewart. We had the Roosters beating the Broncos. How incredible this ladder is at the moment. Anyone can beat anyone. There is so much, so make sure to tune in. We had Origin selections for New South Wales, for Queensland. You don't want to miss it. We've got the Skipper Scope here with us at the moment. Mate, Lachie Galvin situation. We're going to move on from it quickly here, but just before we do, I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, look, it's been a tough old couple of days for Lachie and the West Tigers, hasn't it? But I'm it's crazy. I think this may benefit the Tigers long term. As crazy as that may sound. They've been a club that's gone through something like this before, very similar. When you talk about the talented players that they had in their roster, back when Luke Brooks, Mitch Moses, and Teddy were all coming through, and then with this situation, the fact that he's moving on but doing it enough time, I feel like they're in such a better position right now.
Yep.
And using his name, it feels like it's even galvanised the group. Like it feels like it's like, and I feel sorry for Lachie with a couple of the posts that have been aimed his way, but I can also understand it from the players. And I have a sneaky feeling. I was already pretty high on the Tigers.
Yep.
And I thought they started the season really well. I think they can go on a bit of a trajectory here, and they can come out the other end of it. And whether how you feel about the Lachie situation, I actually like what the West Tigers have done in the sense where, all right, there's no offer here to be made. You want to plan long term, so therefore you need to find out, can Adam Doueihi be a partner with Jerome Luai? Yep. We're about to find out this week. Probably going to need to see it for at least a couple more weeks. And then we're going to get a good look at Latu Fainu. Like I don't have as many problems with what Lachie Galvin's done as most. But in saying that, I'm also happy for the Tigers to sit him and start to figure out, what their best lineup looks like without him, because, he's not going to be a part of the plans moving forward. I'd hate to think that, even though he's been dropped now, he's no chance of fighting his way back in the team, or if there was a crazy amount of injuries or Jerome's playing Origin or for whatever reason and they still don't play him.
Do you think it's the fact that he essentially said the playing group and the coaching staff aren't good enough for me in the next few years? Do you think that's hard to come back from? Like, for example, if you're a forward sitting next to that bloke, about to run out, and you've heard like him say that publicly, is that hard for a forward to go, no worries, bro? Like, I wonder whether that's because some people say the best side is with Lachie Galvin in it. And I think on paper, absolutely, 100%. I just wonder, how hard it is going to battle? Like, the boys beside you, would they trail as hard for Lachie Galvin as they would before this whole situation?
No, not right now. Yeah. No. But
if he earns that respect
back.
If
he earns it back,
fair.
And he does the right things at training, and he puts his head down, and he blocks out all the noise now. He's had his say. You're going to be pissed off with him. You're probably going to look at him no matter what. You're not going to get back to 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
But if he does the right things and goes to training and kills it in New South Wales Cup, and doesn't sulk and doesn't
agitate and all that.
Agitate and think he's above the New South Wales Cup players, and then guys, every New South Wales Cup team's got a few veterans that have been down there that have been around for a while. If they get back to reporting to either Benji or the senior boys and going, he's been unreal, he's ripping in for us, he's trying as hard as he can, then you'll never get back to fully where you were before the players heard those statements, but. Yeah, I'm just not for banishing him completely, but I fully understand West Tigers doing it in the interim and figuring out, can Adam Doueihi be a long-term solution with Jerome? And
that's the positive story with all this, isn't it? Adam Doueihi. Like what he's been through. Now he all of a sudden has an opportunity to get the jersey he wants back.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he's, I guess the biggest thing with him is his injury history, because he has missed a whole lot of games. So is he your long-term solution? Probably not. You probably like him in the centres with the ability to go into the halves. So I'm more intrigued to see what Latu Fainu looks like, because they've had huge raps on him for years. I remember it like early on when he was coming through at Manly.
Well, he got signed over. So basically what happened was Lachie Galvin was brought to the club. Essentially, you're going to get a fair crack at the halves.
That's right.
And then they went out and signed Fainu and Sullivan. I think it was both. It was at least one of them.
Yep.
And that actually frustrated Galvin, understandably so. I've been in his position before. There's nothing more frustrating when you sign a contract under certain pretense, you arrive, and then the club just goes, oh, who cares, we'll change that. Eventually, you've got to move on from it. They did debut him, they did put him in. But yeah, so just to back up your point, they actually rated Fainu so much they signed him over it.
Yeah, no. So, and I think a guy like Jerome and him can really mesh together well. I think they would really complement each other. So, that's what we're going to get to see. And then, sort of just going back to my point now, if he stays in New South Wales Cup for a month or whatever it may be, and he rips in, he does all the, he should kill it, right? Because
he'll kill it
because of the level he plays at first grade.
He's a gun.
He's a gun.
Yep.
He should go down there. He should kill it. Now, it's not always the same when you drop from first grade and go to New South Wales Cup because you don't have the talent around you like you would have. Like having guys like finally, being off the back of a really good front row pairing of Terrell May and Fanor Bolle, like that's a really good platform. He's not going to have that at New South Wales Cup.
Coruscant at 9.
Appy at 9. So
Luai laying the platform.
As long as he goes in, rips in, and like I said, doesn't sulk and does the right things, then I'm happy for him. And if the Tigers, it's up to the Tigers and Benji and the senior players. Like they've got to get reassurances from the New South Wales Cup coach, the senior players in New South Wales Cup that he's coming down, he's doing the right things. He's everyone makes mistakes.
Mate, that's what I was saying earlier.
He's 19 years old.
He's 19. I made way worse mistakes when I was 19. I think, and he doesn't have to do this, but I reckon if he walked in, up to your point, if he walked into that playing group without the coach, without, anyone telling him to, say, boys, you know what, I didn't handle this right, okay? I apologise. I love playing with you, rah. And then he went back to New South Wales Cup and digged in. I agree with you. That is his path back. I just think that there needs to be probably some acknowledgement from Galvin that, making a statement that you don't feel that this club is good for your development, like that does rub blokes the wrong way who put their body on the line for you every single week. But I think, and I've actually spoken to some people from the Tigers. I reckon if he went and just said, boys, stuffed up, hand on heart, apologies, probably could have handled this better. I reckon they forgive him like that, as long as he works hard.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as he works hard.
Exactly. And when you look at the statement, like I'm not totally sold that statement's, fully his. And, because it's a mixture of Stefano's statement when he left, and it's a mixture of DCE's statement from when he's, potentially trying to, you look and he's pieced together all these different statements from guys that have moved on and meshed it into his own one. So for me, that looks like maybe a third party's been involved in that statement.
Chat GPT, you reckon?
And Chat Isaac Moses. And I've seen his name's been thrown around. I've known Isaac for years. Yep. I'm actually okay with Isaac, but for sure he's a factor in all of this.
There's not the problem with managers, but what people don't give managers enough grace for is their interests don't align with clubs.
No.
So that they always get hounded for doing things wrong. And I'm not suggesting that they don't do things wrong. They do. But their interest is literally get their player the most money and the best deal.
Yep.
Now you could argue, on speaking, it's like, okay, if you get a shorter deal here, you'll get a longer deal there. But at the end of the day, plainly, it's get their client the most money and the best deal.
Yep.
And which is counter to a club's, which is win a premiership, which is pay blokes as little as, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're always going to come off from the bad guy because their interests are usually juxtaposed to the club's interests.
And he's the most ruthless out of anyone. Like I said, I understand the game.
Yeah.
When I was younger, even though he's definitely for me a factor in this, at the end of the day, you can't, it's not just all Isaac. And I've seen people just pointing the finger at, it's not just all Lachie and it's not just all the club. There are so many factors that go into a huge decision like this. And I dare say he he doesn't act in the manner he does if a player isn't genuinely, keen to move. It would have to,
his dad's involved. His dad was quoted.
Whether the wording is correct, whether the statement's correct that they've sort of come up with together, there's a part of it where Lockie's like, I really want to go have a crack somewhere else. How do we pitch this?
Yeah.
How do we get it across the media? How do we best...
See, I think that initially the leaking to the media about Benji can't coach, I thought that was a step you really can't come back from.
No,
that's
a tough one.
If they had a better relationship with Tigers, I feel like they could have done some kind of joint situation where they go, okay, this isn't working. We're both going to move on from each other. Can we have a joint sit-down public statement and say together, I'm going to go my separate ways. The Tigers are... That's where I feel like the best case scenario could have worked out. But I feel like saying Benji can't go or
but here's the thing. Look, let me quickly go to Sarah. You sit down and they go, look, we're not interested in signing. Whatever the reason may be. What is the reason though?
Yeah.
That's the kicker, right?
Yeah.
So whether you believe it's the truth, is the truth even worse?
Yeah.
Could it be as simple as I think I'm going to go and garner 100, 1.2, 1.3. It could be something where Isaac knows the market better than any manager. So
I would have respected if he had said, "Listen, I can get 1.3 somewhere else." I believe.
Yep.
I'd be like, "Listen, man, I get it.
Yeah.
You're a professional athlete. Yeah, there is like a little bit of like they gave you debut, but at the same time, like if you weren't playing good, they wouldn't be loyal to you. Like, loyalty is only as good as you're playing in rugby league.
But we would sort of like understand that a little bit more because we understand the game.
Yeah.
Fans, again, like it's how do
You're
you
not
win?
hiding to nothing.
Look, and no matter what, he's a good young ascending player who we all think is going to develop into one of the best halves in the game. The West Tigers didn't want to lose him, and unfortunately he's going. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Just to clear up, so afternoon, boys, I'm still trying to figure out where the mistake he has made. He never said the players are no good to play with. The media are hounding him for an opinion just because you guys think Benji would be good for him. Galvin doesn't. No, I think you're missing, like, if you come out and say this club isn't the best for my progress, of course the players in it are going to take offence to that. They go out and bleed for you every single week.
It's a good point with regards to, like, I haven't actually seen him come out and say anything about the playing group.
So Michael Chamis has said that they had no faith in Benji Marshall as a coach.
Yep.
Andrew Webster has said they went with a list of 7 things that they had an issue with some of them being Benji Marshall to the CEO.
Okay.
So, like, it's multiple sources
Again,
confirming.
I still haven't seen anything about the playing squad, which is different. Like, that's a different argument. And I could understand where if you're the playing group, you could go, all right, well, he's associating us with Benji. I can understand how they...
Well, they clearly did. Luai come out and said team first.
Taruva clearly has as well. So...
like, I just think that if you could have handled massages it a little bit better,
for sure,
you wouldn't have had that.
For sure.
So he hasn't done anything wrong with wanting to be with another club. Anyway, going to go to a break. We'll see you on the other side.
That's the body. That's the NRL. Indirect but low force.
Oh, Skipper Scope. He's had a blow up, mate. Walk us through it, Skip. What's going on there?
Oh, we need another 80 minutes on the show, Kempy. That's how long. Like, there was just poor calls the entire time.
No, it was bad.
That was in the 75th minute, I think, right at the end. Here's the kicker. Our man Cam, the money man Munster. He's a very honest man, right?
Yeah.
That was a captain's challenge.
Yeah.
Imagine how sure of yourself you have to be. I know I was at the back end of the game to use a captain's challenge. If you didn't hit someone high, there's no way you waste the captain's challenge,
there's
right?
No way.
It's silly. So you go like, I didn't hit I didn't, Ash.
Yeah.
Go have a look at it. So they go upstairs, and that's why I was smiling to begin with. Like, I was smiling because I knew it had just been. It was a snowball effect, and to be fair, because the Melbourne Storm was so much better than the Warriors, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's one of those games where the Storm were going to blow the Warriors out regardless, but there was just 2 or 3 just confusing calls in that game from both. I think it was Ashley Klein was the on-field referee, and Kennedy was the video referee.
Mate, you know what's crazy is how desensitized we've become to like some poor calls with the head highs. Like, sometimes there's penalties for head highs where there's no contact with the head, and we just cop it. We just go, oh, okay. Whereas like a few years ago, that would be like back page, absolute disaster. What's going on there? But there are, I reckon once a game, you can find a call for a head high where they actually don't hit the head.
But then there was also a couple in that game where they got him right around the chops, and I went, oh, he's going to go.
Yeah.
He's going for 10, and then it was like nothing happened.
The thing that frustrates me is like, if you were really truly going to police any contact to the head with the arm, mate, you always get hit in the head when you play footy. Like, there's always little hits in the jaw or whatever. They pick and choose what ones are, contact to the head, moderate force. I don't understand.
There could be almost 2 every set, Kempy.
Yeah.
Almost 2 every set where there's going to be some sort of force, even just slightly, or a little shoulder that connects with the head that slides up from the chest area. To a set,
because
easy. Especially through the middle when there's 3 guys in the tackle.
There's only so much area that you can aim at.
Yeah.
And also, the point of contact always is usually the ball first, which is like essentially just under your chin. So you're carrying a ball here, you're looking at like maybe 10 centimetres between there, maybe 15.
Yep.
And you're running from 10 metres away. Like, there's always going to be contact.
And then someone gets a little bit of contact before you get in there, so then the level of where you're aiming, that changes ever so slightly.
Oh, bro, you know the one I can't cop is they said that mitigating circumstances would matter. And yet, when someone chops a guy through the middle and their body lowers by 10 centimetres, how is that not mitigating?
Yeah.
Like, how is that not mitigating what's happened here? Like, if I come into a tackle and someone chops just before I make contact, the problem is not on me. Like, I'm not. How am I supposed to measure how far he's going to drop from the impact in his midsection?
Well, see, what happened was 2 weeks ago, they stuffed up on the Jerome Luai on Edward Cossey one, and then they stuffed up on the Jordan Ricky one early on in that week. And because they stuffed up on those ones, they've just gone completely the other way, rather than just call those two like you see it.
Yeah.
Those two should have been sin bin because there were no mitigating circumstances. And like Jerome Luai left the ground.
Literally left the ground. Yeah, that was crazy. That's crazy, that one. I couldn't. Like, even Ricky was about to walk. Like, he began to walk off the field.
Payne went to go tap him like, don't worry, just go.
Just go.
and then it was only on report, and Jordan's gone, turned around and gone,
oh, no.
Oh, yeah, we'll take that. I think, did he get 2 weeks as well?
Yeah, I think so. 2 weeks. So there you go. What about Jackie Wyden? Totally swings the game with a hip drop. Doesn't even get... Anyway. Okay.
That was disgusting.
Oh, my God. That might be the worst call all year, seriously. All righty, let's get to some previewing of some rugby league. The Seagulls versus the Dragons. Saab returns on the wing. Falalo drops out of the side. Christian Tuipulotu, the money man, he's out with a hamstring injury. Finai comes onto the wing. Egan is named on the bench despite leaving the field against the Titans with an elbow injury. Speak to me, Scope. What do we got here?
I'm worried about Manly.
I am too.
I didn't like the way they played against Cronulla, and they were really poor. I went and watched the game against Melbourne out at Four Pines a couple of weeks ago. Now, apart from the Melbourne blip, they've been really good at home in the last 18 months, and they'll get a full crowd. So I think that, that obviously favours them, and they, Sabi returns, but that's not a huge in for me anyway. Yeah. I'm worried about this game. I really am. I think just Flano, with his relationship and knowing Manly well, is an advantage for the Dragons as well. And
he's a bloody good tactical coach, Flano. I don't think he gets enough appreciation for how good he is tactically.
Yeah.
He's the one coach that out-tacticked the Storm in a grand final. Like, they changed their whole system after that grand final. Because
he's got a good record against Bellamy, doesn't he?
He does. And, like, very rarely do any coaches have good records against Bellamy. But the game last week, it was genius to not use Gutho. Like, what do you do when all your attackers are around one bloke? Use him as a decoy.
Yeah.
They did that every single try. I'm a little bit worried about the Seagulls. And I don't even think it's the DCE thing. I really don't. I think it's more... I feel like there's a bit of maybe a disconnect between playing group and... I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's all comfortable there at the moment.
Yeah, and then obviously, you got to add in and consider again, like their record without Turbo is dramatically worse.
Yep.
And they've also lost their the big
Paseka.
alpha front row and Paseka. I always had my concerns. I've had my concerns about their forward pack for for a number of years. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Dragons come in and get a victory in this game.
Yeah, especially if they can just somehow come up with a tactic to stop the spreading of the ball so much. Because the problem with the Eagles, the Seagulls, if they can't spread the ball and play side to side, they almost don't know where to go from there, because it's so ingrained into them. And that's what the Dragons did to the Storm. They just frustrated the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Like when they just could not get across the line. So it's going to be a close one.
I like that. I like Egan as well.
Mate, he's a gun. Absolute gun. All right, Doggies versus Rabbitohs. Burton returns after missing last 3 games with an knee injury. Haywood returns to the bench. Tupinoa returns on the bench for suspension. Rabbitohs. Walker returns from a hammy injury. Latrelli Mitt. Walker, Mitchell in the halves. Who would have thought? That's exciting. It's exciting. Campbell Graham comes into the wing for Alex Johnson. Campbell Graham into the wing. That's interesting. Okay. Schuster's named in reserves after returning to footy in New South Wales Cup last weekend. What do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, good to see Shuey back playing some footy back in New South Wales Cup. I would be very surprised if he plays any part in this game. He's probably a couple of weeks away, but he could be a little bit of an X factor later in the season for him.
Yep.
I'm high on the Bulldogs. I'm really high on the Bulldogs. I've liked what they've done, especially in the last couple of weeks without Matty Burton and Viliami Kikau. We talked about Manly struggling with no Turbo and Paseka. I could argue that, right now, those 2 outs for the Bulldogs are just as devastating for the Bulldogs, but they handled it so much better because I feel like there's a better system in place currently at the Bulldogs. So,
I say this all the time, but the star's the system at the Bulldogs. The system is the star, whereas at Manly, the star is the system. You know what I mean? Like, everything is revolving around DC having a good game or Tommy having a good game. Whereas the Bulldogs, you don't need your stars to have a good game. You just need everyone to stick to the plan. You look at Melbourne Storm, whenever you look at their fantasy points, there's very rarely someone that's just stood out above everyone else. It's always about the system being the star, and that's the same thing with the Penrith through their dominance. The system was the star. Don't get me wrong, you've obviously got to have people that can take it to that next level when they need to.
Yeah.
But I always think the good sides, the system is the star rather than the star being the system.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think, this is a game, and Matty will know this. There are games where Cody Walker and Latrell can be frustrated into errors, into trying to do something crazy.
Yep.
And they've been really good at it this year. I think they've played above what their roster has been, and they've missed a whole bunch of players. And the most important player in Cam Murray hasn't played a part and won't play a part until potentially the end of the season. But I feel like the Bulldogs, they're like a boa constrictor. The harder you fight, the more they squeeze.
Yep.
And I think it's the perfect marriage for them with a team like the Rabbitohs, who, if they continue to apply pressure defensively, the Rabbitohs just might mistake the way out of this game.
Yeah.
And then the Bulldogs can win. And the Bulldogs will happily go and beat the Rabbitohs 2-0.
Literally.
They would love to walk out of, a Good Friday game with a 2-0 victory. So I can see... I like the Bulldogs in this one.
Yeah, all right. Now, don't forget, $10 tickets available from Dogs website. Should see the crowd close to 70,000. So make sure to get down.
That?
Huge game. We're going to head to a break. After the break, plenty more to preview. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Let's get straight into it, shall we? The Dolphins versus Storm. Dolphins unchanged from last week. Storm, Jerome Hughes is named to play despite missing a second half over the win over the Warriors last week. Fa'alongo, he will play his first game of the season on the wing for Grant Anderson, shifting to the centres. How do you see this one, Scope?
Yes, look, I like the Storm in this game, but I don't think they're going to blow out the Dolphins. I think I like what I've seen from the Dolphins in the last couple of weeks, and I can see this highly competitive for a long time.
Yep.
I just think the Storm will have the class, especially if Jerome Hughes is not only out there, but he's close to 90% healthy. Because, I seen that Bellamy was saying at the presser after the game that he would have been able to go back out there in the second half against the Warriors if it wasn't already, 36-0, I think, at halftime. So if Jerome Hughes is cherry ripe, the Storm win, but they don't win comfortably. I think the Dolphins will really push them.
Okay, now, question, putting you on the spot here. November 1, Hughes can talk to other clubs. How much are you paying for Hughes?
Ooh, how old is Hughesy? 30?
Yeah,
31?
Probably around 30. 29, 30, I'd say.
3-year deal, 1.5. 4.5 over 3. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's bang on 30 right now. So right now he's 30.
But
so
you know what?
33
He's
by
30
the-
years old. He's probably not going to get another deal. So, as in, in that range.
2 year?
No, I think the other way for Choosy. He'll have all the power. He'll be the premier player of November 1.
I'm thinking from a club's perspective, though. What's your perfect...
Oh, 3's perfect.
Okay, 3.
Get him from 30, he'll be 31 next year, 32, 33, 34. He's getting better. He's not one of those players that's showing any decline at all.
Yep.
I'd be stoked to get him on a 3-year deal, but if I was his management and if I was Hughesy, I'd be looking for a 5-year deal.
Yeah, wow, 5 years. So, look, with science these days, you can play for so much longer. What's just insane, $1.5 million. That is crazy.
You know what I like it for, Hughesy's a bit of a late bloomer as well.
Yeah, for sure.
For guys like Cody Walker and even Fogarty. Fogarty didn't start playing week in, week out first grade until about 3 years ago when he was at the back end of the Titans. And then since he's emerged progressed down at the Raiders. So if I'm Fogarty, I'm digging my heels in. I'm looking for a 2 to 3 year deal.
Yep.
And it's north of 750 because that's what the market says right now for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All righty, next game. The Warriors. Fisher Harris out with a pec injury. Ford comes in the front row. Nickel Klukstad is out due to concussion. Tua Picky, fullback. Berry suspension sees Curdy Catewell centres. Halasima joins the back row. Can't wait to see him start. Man, he's a good player. Tomato Martin named on the bench. First game of the season. Broncos. Ricky returns for suspension to place Jazeski, who was suspended. Arthurs has been named after having his concussion downgraded. And Tyson Smoothie joins the bench in place of Marty Tapua. What do you see here, brother?
Did you see the Jesse Arthurs situation at the back end of that game? So he got ruled out of that game for a Category 1 with a little bit of jesting. And I've been calling this out with a number of players this year. Guys that are, playing around with the jaw, pretending, your players grab their neck if it's a crusher tackle or whatever it may be, or, grab their ankle if it's a crusher, all the different tackles. He got given a Category 1 because he sort of got up and was looking all wobbly and then acting confused after the game that he was given a Category 1. These players have got to be careful with this stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I know they end up losing the game, so not that it did cost them the game, but later on in the season, come finals time, or imagine if a player gets up. They never do an Origin, actually. That's a bad example.
Yeah.
It's after the Origin period, everyone gets on and starts playing footy again properly. Because we all watch Origin and go, oh, that's how it's supposed to be played.
Yeah,
from both the referees and the players.
Yeah, I would be telling my players, I don't want you fake at all because I don't want you off for 15 minutes. look, I get we get to replace you, bro, but you're starting for a reason. I'd be telling my players, none of that. No faking. Don't hold your head. Like, if at worst, go like that and then just keep going. But none of this faking, because the risk of you being asked to go for 15 and us not getting it. And also, it's just one penalty. Like who cares? Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I've
got absolutely no read on this game, by the way. I've got the Broncos with no confidence. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors not only win, they could, mate, something weird could happen in this game, and one of them could end up flogging the other one by about 20.
Mate, with the Broncos, I just wish they would listen to Michael, play boring footy. They have this mentality of, we are the excitement machine and we just get to go out and have fun and enjoy our footy and spin it or whatever. I think they've just got to fall in love with playing boring footy, because they'll win nearly 90% of their games if they just play boring footy. And the big plays will come. But I just feel like at the moment they're way too keen to just go spin. Oh, we got taken out on tackle 1. All good. We'll do it again. Just got to get used to playing boring footy. With the Warriors, I actually just give them a massive rap for where they are at the season. Like, they actually haven't played that well, but they're in the top 8.
Yeah, and that's a complete forgive to that game against Melbourne. Referring back to the game that I seen Melbourne play against Manly at 4 points. I remember thinking to myself as they were just how clinical and sharp it looked.
Yep.
I was going, oh, geez, I'd hate to be the next team that has to play them on a day game.
Yep.
The very next week, unfortunately, the Warriors got them in Melbourne on a 30-degree day. Sell out. It was just...
worst time.
Like, no, it didn't matter who they were going to play, maybe except for probably the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
That's it. They're the only team that could have gone down there in those conditions with the team at 100% and give them any sort of a run.
Well, like the Storm, I think, are averaging like 30 to 40 points scoring a game. And I agree with you. We said it on Monday. Like, I know it sounds like a cop-out, but it's like, I think the Storm do that to any team not named the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I really do. Okay, next game. Roosters v. the Panthers, live on SEN. Nwanga Ntuase returns from calf injury to take the place of Billy Smith. Radley will start at lock after returning from injury on the bench on the weekend. Kenny returns from a shoulder injury to bolster the pack. Casey McLean, Garner are the new centres, with Tungor moving to the bench and Thomas Jenkins starting on the wing. Thoughts, mate?
I want to go to like a little bit more in depth with this Panthers.
Okay.
So I think this is the revenge game for the Panthers.
Okay, the bounce back.
The Roosters are the team that started the slide when everyone thought they were travelling, and now everyone's starting to doubt them. So I can see a revenge factor, and the Panthers get up in this game. But just looking at everyone sort of talking about the Panthers and where they're at right now, I reckon a huge decision that was made a couple of years ago is one of the main factors why the Panthers are currently where they are. They had an opportunity, not an opportunity. There was 2 guys off the contract in the same position at the same time, and it was Isaac Tungor and Stephen Crichton. Geez, I'd love to have that back, because I think once they secured Isaac Tungor, it gave them very little space to have any movement around the negotiations with Stephen Crichton, and therefore Stephen Crichton moved on. And I know like there are other huge names that moved on, like Jerome's been huge and Fish and all that, but that's Isaac Tungor moved to the bench right now and just completely looks like he's lost all confidence defensively.
Oh, mate, absolutely.
Like he's all over the shop defensively.
Yeah.
So I think that's one move that I'd love to have back, but I think this is the revenge game for the Panthers, and it'll be close, but this is a game they'll really want to get.
Yeah, it's a great point you bring up, because like it's one of those situations where they've probably got this spreadsheet where they look across their salary cap and they've got centre position. Above that centre position, it probably says we do not pay more than, let's just say 500K. We'll say 500K. And they would have looked at the names and said, okay, who fits into that category? Tungor does.
Yes.
Who doesn't fit into that category? It's Critter. And so that's the one area. I think it's very similar to what Reed Marnie and the Eel situation happened, where it was the one area where they needed to bend the rule a little bit because it was so important you kept a winner like that in the side. And I think it's the same thing with the Eels. When they looked at Reed Marnie and they had this spreadsheet that got them to a grand final and all that stuff, and it was the one area where they needed to be flexible and go, you know what? We should just break the rules a little bit here to keep this kind of guy. So I agree with you, mate.
Let me clarify one thing too. Because of all those reasons, I liked the play at the time. This is just in hindsight. I'm just looking back at it now and not pointing any fingers at the Panthers.
This is hindsight for sure.
When they made that move, I went, all right, they're going to keep Isaac Tungor for a little bit less than Stephen Crichton. Yeah. They've got strong depth in the outside backs. They'll be okay.
And they still want to comp.
Critter exceeded my expectations of the Bulldogs, not only as a player, but also a leader. And currently where he is now is not only a Bulldogs player, but also what he's done at state level and so on. So,
also it's also losing other key players too that have. So, for example, like Stephen Crichton he's a captain in a new club. Jerome Luai is a captain in a new club. Fisher Harris is a captain in a new club. By losing all three leaders,
yeah, that's fair.
That adds on to the loss of Crichton, if you know what I mean. Yep. Whereas if you kept Luai and Fish, they can pick up the slack a little bit. But at the moment, they've lost. It's similar to what happened after the Melbourne Storm grand final. The Melbourne Storm's entire bench became marquee signings at other clubs. At the Panthers, Critter, Luai, and Fish all went to captain their next clubs. So think about the leadership that you're losing.
So you think about the Storm team, was that like Tino,
Dale, Hines,
Cheese.
And Cheese.
Yeah.
All marquee signings. Signings. And so you look at the Panthers, and I just think that they've just lost so much leadership. When the attitude is down, when the energy is down, Critter's energy guy, Fish energy guy, Luai energy guy. The intangibles you can't really measure, mate. And I agree with you. I want to make it clear, and it's a really good thing to make it clear. This is hindsight hero talking.
Yeah.
Like at the time when they were looking at it going, look, we can pay Critter $700K or we can pay Tungal $500K. I said pay Tungal $500K every day of the week.
I'm with you. I've just been looking at it the last couple of weeks and just been so impressed. It's more how impressed I've been by and surprised I've been by Critter, really.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to finish the preview of the round. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. The Titans team news: Tino Fa'asuamaleaui returns to suspension. Jojo Fafita and Isaac Fa'asuamaleaui. They all return for suspension. Philip Sammy moves to centres. Firmo returns to the back row. Cleese Haas, Chris Randall drops to the bench. And Raiders, Hosking returns after missing 4 games. And Sasangi drops out of the 18. Titans, I have a toxic relationship with the Titans, Scope. I really do. I love them to death, but they make me so mad. They make me so mad because there's a bloody good footy side there. There really is. And every time I get hope, every time I fall in love, they break my heart. How do you see this one going, mate?
Yeah, they are, aren't they? They're very capable of just doing something that you don't expect, but I think there's a better team on the other.
Well, just quickly,
the nation's capital that's coming up.
Just to drive that home, I asked Connor Watson today, who's the most underrated team to play, like the hardest underrated team to play? He said the Titans, because you just don't know what Titans are going to rock up. Like, they rock up, and all of a sudden you got Campbell coming up, you have Brimo coming at you, David Fafita. But yeah, so you reckon Raiders?
Yeah, no. If you don't get your contact right on the Titans and they get on the front foot, and then Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson are just hitting the ball at the advantage line, you're in for a really long day.
Yep.
And I felt like they've been a little bit more controlled this year, and we haven't seen them as explosive, but they're definitely capable of it. I just got a high opinion of the Raiders.
I love what they're doing.
I know they only played the Eels last week without, and we're about to get to them, and Mitch Moses is back, but they've been impressive. So I've got the Raiders. Close game for a bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if they blow them out at the end.
Yeah, okay.
Especially if the Titans get frustrated and, it starts to get a bit loose. Just like the Dragons game, I could really see it happening in the same fashion because they were highly competitive for 30 minutes.
Yep.
Then they had a 10-minute period before half-time where the Dragons just rolled them. Then there was a bit of arm wrestle again and the Dragons rolled them again.
Yeah, it's this is a really weird one because it could be 13+ either way. It really could. Look, I think the Raiders, I really like what I'm seeing from them. All right, Knights versus Sharks. We'll just get into the preview. What do you see here, Knights versus Sharks?
Yeah, still got my question marks on the Sharks. I think they'll probably be too good for the Knights because they've probably got more, but a couple of big ins where it's just going to steady them up a little bit. I don't like Phoenix Crossland in the halves. I like him. I think he's going to be a really good hooker long term.
Yep.
So Tyson Gamble allows him to go back into the hooker position. James Schiller has been good, since he's arrived. Missed almost 2 full games with that concussion. So he's a big in for him. And you know what? I'm not sold on the Sharks at all. I'm going to go the Knights.
Okay. Wow. Even with a low-scoring game, or the Knights come out and just have a big one?
Yeah, like they've not even low scoring. But the Knights games have been low just to watch the last couple of weeks, haven't they? So,
right.
Mate, does Carlin come up with a couple of more big efforts than say Braden Trindle on the other side? Yeah, probably. Okay. With no confidence, I'll go the Knights.
Alrighty. Now, just quickly before we head out, Tigers versus the Eels with Moses returning.
Tigers, obviously they're gonna improve heaps, and just looking up in the locker room and seeing Mitchie's going to be huge for Parramatta. I think they're probably Zach Lomax away from actually competing properly with some of the main teams, and despite everything that's happened at the Tigers, I think they can Lachie Galvinise and get the victory.
Oh, it's going to be used all year, Lachie Galvinised. Alrighty, we are going to head to a break and then we'll wrap the show up. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. And I'll tell you what, we got a bone to pick with Timmy Williams and Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, so me and Jimmy Smith were doing crunch time on Sunday. We're going through, it started with a Fogarty conversation. We're like, where does Fogarty sit? So, I had him around the 7 or 8 range. And then we started going through our list. And Jimmy Smith somehow, I got to 5 and I had Jerome Luai 5 after Cleary, Hughes, Moses and DCE.
Yep.
And then he had Jerome Luai at 10. And then him and his mate, and your mate too, Timmy from Supercoach fame, Supercoach Playbook, he agreed with Jimmy Smith that Jerome Luai is not in the top 10 of halfbacks in the game right now.
You're kidding. That's a joke. Pull your head in, Timmy. That's an absolute joke, mate. I tell you what, not in top 10. Okay, let's go through it. At number 1, Nathan Cleary. At number 2, it would probably be Hughes.
Yep.
At number 3, Mitchell Moses. DC, I'd probably put DC before Moses. Number 5, probably Adam Reynolds.
Yeah, I had Reynolds a little bit lower. This is, I had Katoa up there.
Yeah. See, I'd have Luai before Katoa at the moment.
Yeah, no, Luai's before Katoa, but this is the guys after. Jimmy had him at 10.
10? You're kidding.
And then they text me, they're in a group chat today, they're saying Timmy Williams is on board. I thought Timmy had better footy IQ than that. I was very
did too,
disappointed.
mate. I did too. That is disappointing. The bloody Tigers are in the top 8 right now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Best defence in the league.
Unbelievable.
Behind the Bulldogs.
All righty, we're going to go now. Make sure to tune in on all good Spotify. See you next week.